Have you ever thought about how much you're actually paying for your streaming services each month? I'm talking about Netflix, Hulu, Disney+, Amazon Prime, Apple TV+, and the list goes on. You probably don't even blink when the $12.99 or $19.99 charge hits your account every month. It's convenient, right? A small price to pay for endless entertainment at your fingertips. But here's the thing. What if we're all just one big part of a hidden cost? What if, buried beneath the surface of all this convenience, there's a bubbling crisis waiting to explode? Streaming services are everywhere. They've become the norm. It's almost impossible to imagine a time before binge-watching entire seasons of shows in a single weekend, or watching the latest movie release from the comfort of your couch. But as these services continue to grow in number, in price, and in content, we have to ask ourselves, are we in a subscription bubble? The streaming boom a subscription paradise? Just a decade ago, the idea of subscribing to multiple streaming platforms seemed unthinkable. Sure, there was Netflix and maybe a few other niche services, but it was a simple world. One subscription, all the content. But then something changed. Streaming giants like Disney+, HBO Max, and Apple TV+ flooded the market, bringing with them an avalanche of content, exclusive shows, films, and documentaries that you couldn't get anywhere else. We were promised that content was king, and that by paying just a little bit more every month, we'd have access to endless entertainment that would never run out. But wait a minute, what's happening now? You might not realize it yet, but we've entered an era where the subscribers are paying for a lot more than they bargained for. What started as a beautiful, on-demand utopia has slowly evolved into a landscape of hidden costs. And I'm not talking about just the dollars and cents. The price tag you don't see. Sure, you pay your $15 here, $10 there, for the convenience of watching whatever you want. But let's zoom out for a second. You've got Netflix, Amazon Prime, Disney+, HBO Max, Apple TV, Paramount+, and a Peacock. That's already 6 major services. If you're paying for all of them, it's easily over $100 a month. That's not even counting the add-ons, like HBO, Showtime, or sports packages. And now, here's the problem. These prices are going up. Remember when Netflix promised it would always be affordable? Those days are over. Streaming services have increased prices repeatedly, and not just by a couple bucks. We're talking about $3 or $5 increases across the board. For example, Netflix's standard plan now costs over $20 a month in some regions. Disney Plus raised its prices just a year after its launch. And at Amazon Prime, once a package deal, is now creeping up past $140 a year, with the video streaming service accounting for just a portion of that. We've become so accustomed to these incremental hikes that we hardly even notice anymore. But when you do the math, it's clear. We're now in a world where the subscriptions are adding up, and it's starting to hurt. The hidden costs, more than just money. It's not just about the money, though. The hidden cost of streaming services is also in the mental and emotional energy we're spending. Ever found yourself scrolling endlessly through the list of shows on Netflix, only to spend a half an hour choosing before finally giving up and watching the same thing you've already seen a dozen times? The sheer overload of content is a problem. We have access to everything, but we can't focus on anything. Think about it. Do you know which streaming service has the show or movie you want to watch? It's a guessing game. You end up toggling between apps, wasting more time than you actually spend enjoying the content. Then, there's the fact that each service has its own algorithms, trying to predict what you'd like next. Some suggestions are spot on, others are not so much. But either way, you're being fed content, not necessarily content you choose. And now with the introduction of exclusive content that's only available on certain platforms, the complexity deepens. A show that was a hit on Netflix a year ago could suddenly be pulled and moved to another platform. Goodbye, favorite show. It's no longer about having everything in one place. It's about constantly jumping from one app to the next, with a price tag attached to each jump. The real bubble. The streaming model is cracking. So, what's going on here? Are we just oversubscribed? It seems that way. We're now in an era where we've maxed out the subscription model. While the streaming services initially thrived with cheap, affordable packages, we're now seeing the cracks. A massive content arms race is underway. The platforms are pouring billions into creating original content, but the question remains, is all of it sustainable? You see, these streaming companies are spending way more than they're making. At some point, the growth curve starts to flatten, and subscriptions don't provide enough to cover the costs. Disney Plus, for example, has been hemorrhaging billions in trying to catch up to Netflix. Similarly, Netflix has seen its stock take a hit as growth slows down. It's an unsustainable cycle. Raise prices to cover costs, and the risk alienating subscribers at the same time. Here's the problem. With a saturated market and rising prices, consumers will eventually hit a wall. Some people will begin cutting back, dropping services that don't offer enough value. Streaming fatigue is real, and we're already starting to see it. When you're paying $10.15 a month for each service, that's not pocket change. And now, consumers are starting to make choices, cutting subscriptions or even canceling altogether. Are we in a subscription bubble? Let's talk about the elephant in the room. Are we in a subscription bubble? It's hard to say for certain, but the signs are there. We've seen this happen before. The dot-com bubble, the housing crisis, and now we might be staring down a streaming bubble. With so many players in the game, so much content, and so many price hikes, the industry is ripe for a crash. If consumers start to push back and services can't deliver enough value, things could collapse, or at least consolidate into a smaller number of dominant platforms. What's next for streaming? So, what does the future hold? We may see some big shifts. The current streaming wars might eventually give way to the consolidation. Some platforms will survive. Others may be swallowed up by larger players. Bundling could become the new norm. Just as cable TV once offered packages for bundled channels, we might see streaming bundles that give consumers a better deal and fewer apps to juggle. There's also the possibility that streaming will revert back to a more basic ad-supported model. It's already happening with platforms like Hulu and Peacock, which offer lower-cost options with ads. Maybe, just maybe, we'll see the return of the free model, with ads helping to subsidize the cost. Final thoughts. Is it time to cut the cord? I think we're standing on the edge of something bigger than just a subscription cost problem. The streaming world is evolving, and there are definitely some risks ahead. The real question is, are we paying the price for too much convenience? Are we, as consumers, becoming part of the hidden cost? And more importantly, when will the bubble burst? As much as I love the convenience of having unlimited access to my favorite shows, I can't help but wonder, how much is too much? Will we look back on this era and see it as the golden age of streaming, or the beginning of a massive, unsustainable subscription bubble? It's something to think about. Maybe it's time to start considering whether all these subscriptions are really worth the price before the bubble bursts.